The gospel reading is from Luke chapter 14. This will serve as the basis for our devotion a little later on. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, 'This person began to build and wasn't able to finish.' Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything, you cannot be my disciples. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is fit neither for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. Whoever has ears, let them hear." The gospel of the Lord. Grace and peace are yours, from God your heavenly Father, and from your Lord and your Savior Jesus Christ, the one who saw you as worth setting aside the glories of heaven for a time so that you could be his. Have you heard of the 10,000-hour rule? Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Outliers, A Story of Success, he comes up with this rule of 10,000 hours that makes the difference between someone who is naturally skilled and someone who has expertise level in some profession, in some skill, and in something that the rest of the world says, yep, they're the expert. 10,000 hours in something, that's a lot of time. If you were to spend 10,000 hours straight, that would be over a year? 416 days, 416 and 2/3 days. No one's ever going to spend 10,000 hours writing away. You got to sleep. Let's pretend for a moment that someone could spend 8 hours a day on something every day for their life. That would get you about 3.5 years. Spending 8 hours on something, no off days, no cheat days, 8 hours a day, 3.5 years straight. Can you imagine doing anything, maybe a job, but doing anything repetitively over and over again so that you can hone a skill? Is there anything that's worth it to you to do that? Maybe you're thinking of the gymnasts that we see every 4 years on our screens, or the ice skaters, figure skaters. Think of how young they are, right? Barely in their mid-teens. And think if the 10,000-hour rule applies to them. 3.5 years, that's about a quarter of their life. And they've probably spent more than that. A quarter to half of their life just on the apparatus in a gym or on the ice. That's amazing. And all for the hopes they'll get a gold, might be willing to settle for a silver or a bronze. But very few of them will even get that. Is it worth it? When they're in their 20s, and certainly by their 30s, they're aged out of it. And maybe they can coach if they're lucky. I wonder if you sat down with one of those gymnasts who's put in so much time and so much effort after the age of 30, I wonder if you sat down and asked them if it was worth it, and they didn't have any of the gold medals that they were aiming for. Maybe they've got a few regional ones, but nothing on the world stage. I wonder if you asked them if it was worth it, what they would say. I don't know. Now, I brought up Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule for a purpose, for us to kind of develop the thought, what things are worth in our life? How much time are we willing to put into the things that we chase after in this life? Now, I don't want you to put it into the context of the Christian faith that once you reach 10,000 hours in church, in personal devotion, in Bible study, then you're an expert and you no longer need to come. No. But is it worth it? Would you see your faith as something that you want to put the time into, that you want to devote your all to, that is something you eat, sleep, and breathe? That's what our Savior is asking of those crowds that are around him. He's asking them, what am I worth to you? And today, when we are examining this portion of our Savior's teaching, I want to ask you, what is Jesus worth to you? The crowds that were following him were largely made up of the fair weather fans. If Jesus was selling hats and t-shirts, they probably would have bought one, but it would have ended up in the closet and never worn again shortly after. You see, they were after him to probably get their miracle, maybe get a fish sandwich. But once his teaching would get more deep, more intense, once the persecution from Jesus' enemies was turned up, they wouldn't be there. Jesus isn't content with those who see him more as a passing fad, see him more as a flash in the pan. He doesn't even want those who are just, in modern day terms, weekend warriors when it comes to their faith. Maybe you've heard of weekend warriors when it comes to the golf course. There are people who every day are out on the links because maybe they have the aspirations to join the PGA or maybe just compete in a few local tournaments. And then there are those who are more like me who like to go out occasionally. Weekend warriors, they take way too many shots, call way too many mulligans, but just have fun anyway. Jesus isn't looking for people who are weekend warriors when it comes to their faith. Just like I would never, ever compete for a green jacket in the PGA. But when it comes to the faith, are you willing to give up more than just an hour on a weekend? Are you willing to have Jesus be everything in your life? That's what Jesus is asking of these disciples, loosely called. They were students of his for a time, but he wants them to devote so much more than just the time they would give to investigate the cool new teacher on the block. So he asks them, or he states to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Jesus uses strong language there. If anyone comes to me and does not hate father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, even their self, that person is not worthy to be called my disciple. Now, Jesus is not telling you to break the fourth commandment and dishonor your father and mother. He is not telling you to let your children fend for themselves and be feral. But he is telling you that he has to take priority. Just like if you were out to dinner with a loved one, with your spouse, and then their cell phone rang and you took a look at it and it said, spam caller, and you answered it anyway, and they kept talking, thinking you were just going to hang up, and you held up your finger and said, yes, I would like to figure out how I could save money on my cell phone bill. You wouldn't put up with that. You certainly deserve more attention than the spam caller on that phone. Now Jesus is saying, your Savior, he deserves every single bit of your attention. Your time in prayer with him should take more priority than a conversation about what you're going to eat next. Your time in the Lord's house with your family of faith should take more priority than scheduling the next family reunion. And certainly your time gathered around the Lord's table where he feeds you with his own body and blood should be of more priority than Sunday dinner at grandma's. Jesus is not saying discount your grandmother, Your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your children. But he's saying, don't hold up your finger and say, Jesus, just wait. I'm going to go worship these people for a while. And the funny thing is that when Jesus receives all of our love, all of that first place love that he deserves, well, then we're able to properly serve and love those that God has given us to love and take care of and lead them to him. But only if we love him first above all else. And when we do love him first above everything, well, then that does come time for us to count the cost of carrying our crosses, because crosses are going to come. Jesus said, and anyone who does not carry his cross and follow after me cannot be my disciple. When you do place Jesus, your Lord, your Savior, above all else, this means you have to have those tough conversations with loved ones who are abandoning God's will for their lives. Who are thinking, well, the culture says things are okay if I do it this way, then that should be okay, and we shut up because we really don't want them to stop loving us. Really, that's a form of worship towards them and not towards your God. If you're willing to let them live in a lie, rather than correct them and show them what God actually says, because you're afraid what they're going to respond to what God actually says, that means you're more afraid of them than you are of God. Your fear, love, and trust is more in your loved one that you're afraid to talk to than in your God who created you. Your God who knit you together in your mother's womb. Your God who fashioned all creation. Your God who said, I love you enough to send my son to take on flesh and blood, to live 30-some years of life, also that he could end up beaten and bloodied and marred on a cross, where the real suffering would be my anger, God the Father says, my anger over all of your sin. I love you that much to punish him in place of you, and now you're not willing to have these hard conversations so that they could have the benefit of the love that I have shown to the world through Jesus. Jesus knew the suffering that he was going to undergo. He knew the cross that he was carrying. He knew the cross that he would be nailed to. This is why he has this invitation to consider the cost of following after him. Because he doesn't want anyone to go at it and then realize, you know what, I don't want to build into this structure because it's far too hard a task. He brings up the illustration about the man who sets out to build a tower, but then has to leave it half finished because he didn't figure if he had enough money to complete the project as planned or not. Just think of how much of a laughingstock we would be if we went with some of the early projects that we had for a building project and we had to stop halfway through. Think of how embarrassing that would have been. Now think of the eternal shame of someone who decides, you know what, I don't want to build on the rock of Jesus Christ. I want to go and find some sand that I think will be stable enough and take my stone out of the building that is the Church of Christ, my living stone. I want to take that out and take it away from the cornerstone of Jesus Christ, and I want to plop it down on this place of land that I think is going to be stable enough, and I want to try building on that. It's not going to last. It's going to be to our shame for eternity if that's what we choose to do with our lives. And Jesus doesn't stop there. He wants us to think about a king going to war. A wise king going to war will realize that if the opposing nation has 20,000 men and he only has 10, he can't win that battle. And so he sends a delegation ahead of him to negotiate for terms of peace. Now, your God has much more than 20,000 angels in his army. He has legions upon legions. He can wipe anyone he chooses to off the face of the earth. And yet he, the one who has the winning army, who no one will ever beat, he chose to send the delegation of his Son into this world to negotiate terms of peace with you. Because he didn't want to go to battle with you. He loves you. So why would we wage war against him when he has already given us the victory through his Son, Jesus Christ? If we decide we want to wage that war, he will win. He will win, and we will be in hell for eternity. But he's already given us the victory. He's already given us his Son who laid down his life for us and picked it back up so that he could take care of us all of our days. So that he could give us a national day where we would say, this is when we're going to take rest. And I'm so glad to see so many of you finding rest in your Savior, who doesn't ask for you to battle him, but gave you the victory. Who, yes, asks you to have tough conversations as you place him ahead of your family, but he is with you throughout that time. Because, to be honest, your God is worth much more than 10,000 hours of your life. He's worth all of your life. And I pray that the message that he has given you through his scriptures convinces you of that. And then you would say, Lord Jesus, my life is yours. Amen.